Hey everyone, good morning. Tiffany here, and I just had a really interesting conversation with a client that made me want to hop on here real quick and just share the psychological stages of growth that we go through multiple times through our life. And I think that this is a really important concept because you really start to understand where the people in your life, where the people who were in your life and maybe no longer are, and where you are on this continuum. And it's important to know that you can be in different areas psychologically in different areas of your life. So in health, you might be in one space, in relationships, you might be in another. But recognizing the tendencies of these stages, I think, is important, firstly, to know where you're at, and secondly, to know what's coming next. So these stages are called child, teen, young adult, and mature adult. So it's also important to know that we obviously physically and mentally go through these stages when we're growing up. The thing is that most people, I would say 80% of the population that I've encountered, don't ever make it past the teenage phase psychologically. So that's a pretty crazy stat. So I just want you to see where you think you lie. Maybe you want to see where your ex-boyfriends or ex-husbands lie, and that might be a reason why you're not together with them anymore. And just understand what's coming next in your journey and what you need to do to get to that next phase where you can become a leader and somebody who mentors others in the world. So the very first stage is the child phase. Now, there's a couple important characteristics that make up the child mentality. Now, I'm not calling anybody who's in this stage, I'm not calling you childish, I'm not calling you immature. I'm simply saying this is the mentality that you have in that specific area of life. Somebody who is in the child mentality phase, they are very self-referential, which means that everything that happens in their life is a result of them, right? So if somebody if you were at a restaurant, for example, and you heard two people laughing, if you're in the child mentality phase, you would automatically assume that they were laughing at you. When we're actually children, so through our physical development, this is between the ages of 0 and 7. So if there was a car accident and they were walking down the street, or your parents get divorced, you have a tendency to blame yourself for these things in the child mentality phase. So they're self-referential. They want everything now. So there's a high degree of impatience. They seek validation. So they want other people to tell them that they're great. Now, when we're actually growing up, so between the ages of 0 and 7, the role of the mother is to encourage us, and the role of the father is to validate us. So our mother inspires and encourages us to perform and to keep going, and our father is there to validate us and tell us that we're great, tell us that we're amazing. And so if we don't get those things between the ages of 0 and 7, a lot of times people become stuck in this developmental phase mentally and start seeking approval from other people. I've seen that happen for women through relationships, where they seek approval from men through sex, through relationships, through other means. I see it happening from people becoming people pleasers, where they can't say no because they're worried that that person will judge them or won't approve of them. I see it, the way that it came up this morning was my client that I was working with. It was actually a guy, but all of his goals were related to money and seeking status because he never was validated as a kid. And so everything that he does is about the $1 million house. And he's gotten to this point where he's stuck in his business, and it's because his goals are purely around validation. And so we're rewiring his brain so that he can validate himself, and he doesn't need that from an external source. So they're self-referential, they're impatient, they seek validation. Everything that mom and dad says to be is true. So mom and dad, obviously, between the ages of 0 and 7. If you're a little bit older, This might be everything that somebody that you look up to says is true. So a coach, a mentor, a celebrity, a politician, an employer, somebody that you kind of put up on that pedestal and idolize. Everything that they say you believe to be true. You never question it. You never enact it to experience it for yourself to see if it works for you. Morning, Kayla. You just automatically believe everything that other people say is true. So that's the child phase. In the child mentality, our primary focus is about understanding our role within that family unit. Or within, if you're an adult and you're in this child phase, then it might be about understanding your role within your family unit at work, within your organizational unit, within your friendship unit, within the societal unit, right? But it's about understanding your role there. From child, we then move into teen. Now, in terms of physical development, this is the ages of 7 to 14. This is where we start to leave the nest, leave the family unit, and figure out, who am I as an individual? This is the stage where most people get stuck. They bounce back and forth like a ping pong ball between child and teen, and they get stuck there, and they're not really sure who they are as a person. The client that I was working with today, he made a comment about being in his mid-30s and, I can't believe that I'm just going through this. Well, the truth of the matter is, I have people coming to me who are in their 50s, their 60s. I've even had a client in their 70s coming to me who had no idea who they are. And I think this is the reason so many people have midlife crises, is because they don't ever experience fully the teenage phase and figure out who they are as an individual without the family unit. Now, the major emotion of the teenage phase is anger. And I think that's why a lot of people get stuck, is because we are taught that anger is bad. And so anger becomes this bad, scary thing that we shouldn't feel. We become afraid of feeling anger. We don't know how to deal with it productively. And so we shy away from it and we move back into that child phase. And then we just kind of bounce back and forth, as I said, between child and teen. So you never really get to move on to the next phase. In the teenage phase, the parents or the mentor, the coach, whoever it is, they fall off the pedestal. You realize that your parents are just human beings. Your parents are flawed, or your coaches are flawed just like the rest of us. Whenever I have somebody who starts coming to my coaching programs, I know that they're going to start in child phase, and I actually don't want to keep them there, because the longer they stay in child phase, the bigger my fall off the pedestal in their eyes is going to be. So I share my flaws from the get-go. I am very open and honest about what I've been through and what I'm going through now, because it helps my clients move into that teenage phase and recognize that I'm a flawed human being just like the rest of us. And I'm doing my best every single day to learn and to grow and to develop and to figure out what I'm going through now. Any coach, I believe, who doesn't share their journey, that's like suicide in my opinion, because eventually you're going to fall off the pedestal. For me, when my one mentor, and I won't name names, when she fell off the pedestal, I haven't recovered from it. And I actually, she fell off the pedestal so hard that I'm just like, I don't think I want to be associated or involved with you anymore, right? If we think about Tiger Woods or any professional athlete, they're up on this pedestal, we have them in child phase, and we forget that they're human beings. I'm not at all justifying Tiger's scandal, his cheating scandal 10 years ago. What I'm saying is that when he fell off that pedestal, he went from having people who were die-hard Tiger supporters to people who were slandering him and hating on him everywhere because he fell off the pedestal. And that's what happens in teenage phase. So in teenage phase, we're figuring out who we are as an individual. There's some anger there. Our heroes fall off their pedestal, And the other major part of the teenage phase is that we rebel. And the level of rebellion depends on how much restriction we have. So it's actually better for parents to really work on validating their kid between 0 and 7, and then giving and installing those belief systems about right and wrong, good and bad, etc. during 0 to 7, so that when they get to the rebellion phase between 7 and 14, you know that the rebellion isn't going to be to the polar opposite extreme of like heroin and crazy drugs. It'll be like getting drunk in a field, right? So my parents did a really good job of this when I was growing up, that there could have been more validation, I'll be honest there. They did a really good job of installing the belief systems in me so that when I did rebel between that 0 to 7 period, I didn't go too crazy. Although I did probably rebel more than what I would have, because they really kept like the bubble wrap wrapped around me. So if you have kids, it's important to know that that 7 to 14 period, they're going to start to rebel. They're going to, that's awesome, Jenny. They're going to start to rebel. They're going to push back. They're going to be what you perceive as disrespectful. And it's not actually because of you, it's because that's what they have to go through. Once we become really comfortable with who we are as an individual, we then move into the young adult phase. Now, this transition from teen to young adult is what specific milestones are meant to represent. Whether it's the bar mitzvah, the sweet 16, the 18th birthday party, the high school graduation, that is what is meant to signify that our parents passed the torch, so to speak, from them to us, saying, okay, it's time to parent yourself now. And we still are here to support you and to guide you, but you can make your own decisions now, and you're responsible for the consequences of that decision. We want that transition to self-parenting to happen while the kids are still in the home, if we're talking about actual kids, so that they don't go crazy, right? So this is where we say, yeah, you can go to a party in grade 10, 11, 12, or whatever, and if you decide to drink and you're really sick the next day, well, you still have to stick to your responsibilities, whether that is working, whether that's doing household chores, whatever it is, attending a family event. You get to make your own decisions. You have to live with the consequences. And the major lesson that we have to learn in young adult phase is to not blame somebody else, to recognize that nobody made us drink, that nobody made us do something else. Where I see adults getting stuck is that they blame other people. They hate on other people for putting in the work that they're not willing to do, but of course they don't want to be honest with themselves and say, I'm not doing the work. So they start to put other people down. They're a scam. They're lying. They're making stuff up, whatever it is. They will tear other people down. They'll blame other people. So if anybody's blaming an ex for their current situation, recognize that it takes two to tango. You made the decision to be in that relationship with that person, and I fully recognize how much that sucks. And I have been in relationships, business and personal, with many, many narcissists. So I fully recognize that looking at yourself and saying, I knew that there was some things going on that shouldn't have been happening, and I chose to stay. Note, I am not blaming abuse on anyone who has been abused. I'm not saying that that was your fault. What I'm saying is that we all have a decision, whether that is a decision to leave a toxic relationship or not, or the decision to carry that around with us, right? If you were abused, especially if it was in your younger years, I was abused by my stepmom growing up. And I made the decision for a very long time to carry that around with me and to be a victim of that circumstance. That's all I'm saying is, in young adult, we have to recognize that we have a decision to make in every single situation and that we have to accept the consequences of that decision with zero blame. The consequences of me being a victim for a really long time was that I had toxic relationships, that I attracted more people who abused me, that I didn't genuinely grow. I wasn't confident in myself. And when I made the decision to stop carrying that around with me, my life completely changed. So that's young adult. When we move into mature adult, that means that we have mastered the no blame game. We take full responsibility for every aspect of our life, and we can start to mentor other people. So I want you to have a look at your life and see, like, where are you in these mentalities? And you might be in different areas of your life. When I was a personal trainer, I could always tell who was in child phase by what they wore to the gym. People who were in child phase, they showed up 20 minutes before their session with me. They would do the full proper warm-up that I showed them at the very beginning. Their shirt would match their pants, which would match their shoes. They were all put together. They would do everything I told them. They would follow their diet. And then about a week later, because in health and fitness, for whatever reason, child phase only lasts for a week or two, they would move into teen, and they would show up 5 minutes late. And they would forget their gym shoes or wouldn't bring their gym shoes. Or they would tell me, I'm not doing push-ups today, or I'm not squatting, or I ate a burger last night. I went out for a Big Mac, so what are you going to do about it? Right? And so that's where they're starting to get angry at me because they're sore or they're not seeing results as quickly as they want or whatever. And then they would move over into a young adult phase where, oh, well, my husband brought home ice cream last night, so of course I had to eat it. Okay. And then eventually they would move into that mature adult phase. So where are you? Psychologically, where are you? Because I see a lot of adults I see a lot of children stuck in adult bodies on a daily basis. And what's scarier is that I see a lot of children stuck in adult bodies that are raising children. So the reason that I share this information isn't to be like, you're stuck in child phase or you're a teen. It's to help you grow so that you can get to that next level and show up as your best self. That's it for me. Have an amazing day. Have an amazing Easter weekend as well, by the way. Eat lots of chocolate and accept full responsibility for the consequences of that. I personally will be doing that. So happy Easter, and I will talk to you all soon. Bye.